Hey guys, the Firebird is here. My brother couldn't be here today, as always, because he went off in a romantic dinner with a frog and he's eating flies in a restaurant. Yeah, I don't get it either, but you do you, Squeaker, you do you. So I guess a deal is a deal. Previously in the Transformers Decepticon tier list, I said that if we get the video to 500 likes, I will do a part 3, and it took about a month, but we finally got the video to 500 likes, so I'm guessing part 3 is gonna happen. But before I start working on part 3, I'm gonna make a part 1.5 and a part 2.5, where I update the Transformers tier list by adding classes. Now, you might be wondering, what are classes? Well, in the Transformers meta and in the game, Autobot and Decepticon players not only rely on stats and strategy, but they also rely on their classes. The classes can provide bonuses against other Transformers as well as some abilities that other Transformers might not have. For example, the classes are a good way to even out the playing field. Now, the way the classes work is that one class beats another, but that class gets beaten by another. So it's basically like checks and balances. This helps Transformers who are weaker be able to contend against Transformers that are stronger. But classes also provide bonuses such as abilities and bonuses that other Transformers don't have. So having classes is a good way to enhance the player. But you might be wondering, what are the classes or specializations? The classes are basically an area that the player specializes in. For example, the Scout class focuses on players who are really fast and agile. They can do critical damage in a moment's notice, as well as being able to dodge enemy hits or even enemy blaster fire. So the Scout class basically provides a speed bonus and a combat bonus. So because they're pretty quick and on their feet, the Scout class is strong against Tech class players, but they're weak against Warrior class players. Next up, we got the Tech class. The Tech class focuses on players who use equipment to optimize themselves, make their shields stronger, create different kinds of weaponry such as sound blasters, or even heal themselves. The Tech class basically has advanced weaponry that the majority of players don't. This advanced weaponry is not often used for offense, it's more often used for defense, but offense Tech players also exist. The Tech class is strong against the Demolition class, but however they are weak against the Scout class. Next up, we got the Demolition class. Now, the Demolition classification is basically used for players who have big guns. Basically, any player who has a firearm and can deal tons of damage and explosions to overwhelm the enemy can fall into this category. The Demolition class is strong against the Tactician class, but they're weak against the Tech class. Next up, we got the Tactician class. The Tactician class is made up of players who use strategy in a battle to help them adapt to any situation during a fight. They basically try to use their enemy's strength against them, and they succeed most of the time. The Tactician class is strong against the Brawler class, however they are weak against the Demolition class. Next up, we got the Brawler class. The Brawler class basically values physical strength than anything else. They will most often rely on their fists and deal critical amounts of damage to an enemy in hand-to-hand combat. Facing the Brawler class in close combat can be a deadly endeavor. The Brawler class is strong against the Warrior class, but they're weak against the Tactician class. Next up, we got Warriors. Warriors have deadly accuracy on the battlefield. Their attacks are precise and they can also bleed their opponents. The Warrior class is often made up of Transformers who use weapons such as swords, axes, knives, and anything that falls into the category of a handheld melee weapon. Unlike the Brawler class, the Warrior class uses a weapon every time they're in a fight, while the Brawler class prefers to use fists. The Warrior class is strong against the Scout class because of their deadly accuracy. However, they are weak against Brawler, who are more experienced in a close combat fight. And yes guys, those are our classes. Each one of these is strong against one and weak against another. So now we're gonna be assigning classes to the Autobots from the Autobot tier list. If you guys wanna know more about that, check the video where I covered the tier list. I won't be going over stats, but I will be talking about what class does each character belong to. It's gonna be a bit shorter, and I'm gonna be using feats, official statements, as well as showings in battle, to come to an accurate conclusion as to who falls in what class. So first off, we start with Optimus Prime, who's ranked in S tier. Now, Optimus Prime right off the bat could either be Warrior class or Brawler class, since during the vanilla game of Transformers 2007, Optimus Prime always preferred to fight up close and personal. He did use a sword, but only used it to finish up Bone Crusher. When fighting Megatron, most of the time he stick to using his fist, and when fighting Bone Crusher, for most of the fight, Optimus only used his fist, only relying on his sword on the last minute to finish him off. Not only that, but Optimus Prime has some ridiculous strength, so being Brawler class seems to be the most likely scenario for Optimus Prime. Either way, Optimus could either be Warrior because of the use of his swords, or Brawler class. But I'm gonna lean towards Brawler class, just because during the vanilla game, Optimus Prime seemed to be more reliant on his fist than anything else. So from here on now, Optimus Prime is gonna be classified as a Brawler class. Next up we got RC. Now just to let you know, we're not gonna go in order here. RC has some amazing speed, and her skill in combat is really exceptional. She could easily be Brawler class because of her skill in combat and her amazing strength. But I'm gonna have to classify her as Warrior class, just because during her showings in the Reign of Starscream, when it came to close combat, RC preferred using her blade during combat, something that Warrior classes are known for doing. Her attacks were really precise that she managed to damage Thundercracker and made him bleed Energon. This was also the case when she fought against Decepticon drones. So because of her strength and weapon usage, I will classify her as Warrior class. Next up we got Camshaft. Unfortunately we never got to see much of Camshaft, so this was a bit tricky, so we had to go by his stats. In his showings during the Reign of Starscream, his gun seems to do some moderate damage. He was never seen using an Energon blade or anything that resembles a melee weapon, so he could be a Brawler class because of his high amount of strength, but his skill stat is pretty low to be Brawler. He could be a tech class because of his high amount of defense, and the tech class is usually made out of tanks or people who can last very long in battle. So Camshaft is tricky. He could either be Brawler or tech class. But since we don't have much to go on, I'm gonna have to say that Camshaft will classify as a Brawler class. He never seemed to use a melee weapon and seemed to be quite confident about his strength since he decided to engage Thundercracker without a weapon. Also, his strength stats pretty high, so that also leads me to believe that he's probably a Brawler class. So I'm gonna classify Camshaft as a Brawler class. Next up we got Ebac. Now Ebac is a tricky one. His intelligence stat and defense stat are pretty good, are pretty amazing, so he could fall either in Tactician class or in Tech class. But I will have to say that he's most likely a Tactician class, remembering that the Tactician class can adapt to any situation really fast. And not only is Ebac a helicopter which will allow him to adapt to almost any situation, if he fights against an opponent that can fly, Ebac can just fly so he can adapt to that. His skill stat and strength stat are pretty high, so a Tactician class needs to be strong in battle to be able to adapt and use the enemy's strength against them. While his high amount of defense can also put him in tech class, he hasn't really shown anything besides his tough endurance to let us know that he's like some kind of scientist or that he possesses some kind of weaponry that gives him an edge in combat. So for that, I will put Ebac as Tactician class. Next up we got Cliff Jumper, and much like Ebac, his defense stat is ridiculously high. But since we have seen Cliff Jumper engage into quite a bit of action during the Reign of Starscream, we can safely say that Cliff Jumper falls into Warrior class. During the Reign of Starscream when fighting Decepticon drones, Cliff Jumper engaged the enemy using his Energon blade as well as his ion cannon. While fighting Thundercracker, Cliff Jumper engaged the enemy by using his energy blades. Not only that, but when you take into account that his fighting style involves using a weapon, his strength stat also backs this up. Warrior class usually has a high amount of strength. While his skill in combat is fairly low, his attacks are precise and accurate and can also bleed opponents. So for that, Cliff Jumper falls into Warrior class. Next up we got Soul Bitch. Oh boy, this was gonna be a tricky one. So Soul Bitch is not really a warrior. I mean, he's not a fighter. He prefers to be a truck. Yeah, he has issues. So we had to go by his stats because he has no showings whatsoever, besides getting killed. So his strength stat is pretty high, and his strength and defense are amazing. It's a shame that everything else though, it's horrible. We can't really say that he's Brawler class because his skill stat's pretty low, and he's not really a scientist since he's off being a truck, so tech class is out of the question. Which I guess we could say that Warrior class will fit him, because Warrior class often doesn't use a lot of skill in combat, and also his toy has a weapon which is a giant claw. So if that's not gonna decapitate anyone, I don't know what is. So we just have the toy and the stats to go on. So I'm gonna have to say the Salvage falls as warrior class. That's not gonna help him very much though. Sorry Salvage, you should have remained being a truck. Next up we got Long Arm. Unlike Salvage who has horrendous stats, Long Arm has pretty good stats, and in fact his stats are so good that it's kinda hard to tell which class does he fall into. Strength pretty good, defense pretty good, firepower pretty good, skill meh. So there's 3 classes that Long Arm can fall into. Number 1 will be warrior class, but the problem with this is that he doesn't really have a melee weapon, so he can knock out warrior. Then we have tech class, but he's not really a scientist or has any kind of weird equipment that gives him an edge in battle. He could fall into demolition class because his firepower stat is really good and he does have a large cannon that can deal tons of damage. So the question here is, should he be a tech class because of his tankiness, or should he be a demolition class because of his firepower? And I don't know. But then again, tech class usually involves transformers who are pretty smart, and his intelligence leaves much to be desired. So for that, I would say that Long Arm kind of classifies more as a demolition class. But really he could either be tech or demolition, but I'm going to lean more towards him being demolition class, just because of the really huge devastating damage that his gun deals against opponents. Next up we got Landmine. Okay, so Landmine, he uses a gun so we can get rid of warrior class. It could be tech class because of his high intelligence, but with that low defense, I don't think so. And you cannot even make the argument that he has a special gun which makes him an offensive tech class because his firepower is nothing to be too proud of. He could be a scout, but his speed is just meh. And being a brawler is also meh because his strength and skill are not that high. So in my opinion he could either fall into tactician or brawler. Now in his showings during Transformers Alliance, 3 Landmine players cannot just jump into the fray trying to take on the Decepticon player known as Wreckage. And they all got wrecked. Yeah, I didn't see much strategy being used there. So yeah, Landmine is a really tricky one. I'm gonna say that Landmine will fall into Tactician class. And I'm just saying this because he could either be Tactician or he could be Brawler. But keep in mind that his stats are so low and he's showing so few that it's really hard to determine what he could end up being. And granted, during the fight, the Landmine players kinda cooperated with one another decently well, and the Wreckage player had some pretty high stats, so maybe that's why the 3 of them got wrecked. But still, this is a really hard one. I want you guys to tell me in the comments down below. Should he be a Brawler class or Tactician class? I really wanna know. Next up we got Bumblebee, and this is an easy one, Scout class. While his speed is fairly decent and it's not like, you know, amazing scout speed, his skill in combat more than makes up for it. Remember, scouts in combat have a lot of skill which they use to evade shots and hits from opponents, as well as dealing critical damage. Also, his other stats are not high enough to give him any other ranking besides Tactician, but Bumblebee's not much of a Tactician, he's more of a scout. So Bumblebee, Scout class. Next up we got Ratchet, and again Ratchet's a pretty easy one. He falls into tech class. Now the only reason that he falls here besides his high intelligence and high defense is his ability to heal himself. Ratchet is a tank and he can heal himself because of him being a medic. He can repair a lot of his parts when he gets damaged in battle, making Ratchet a literal tank. Good luck trying to take this bot down, but good luck trying to take anyone out, Ratchet. Look at that low strength and firepower. That's not good, Ratchet, that's really bad. Ironhide. Now Ironhide here could be tech class or demolition class. Tech class because his intelligence is decently smart and his defense is extraordinarily high. And I guess you could make the case that his weaponry is really unique and no other Autobot or Decepticon has something similar to that, making him a tech class because of his, you know, unique weaponry. But I think demolition class fits him more. In battle he will often, almost all the time, use his guns. Whether it is to boost himself, deal damage to the enemy, or even to look cool. Ironhide prides himself on his guns. Not only that, but he's also listed to be the Autobot's weapon specialist. So you will figure out that the weapon specialist has some kind of, you know, heavy weaponry to go along with him. Even though his defense is way higher than the strength of his guns, I still believe that unanimously Ironhide falls into demolition class. And last but certainly not least is Jazz. Now Jazz here falls into Scout class. Scout class usually has a high amount of speed. Jazz is swift, nimble, and is able to dodge plenty of hits in combat. He can also deal critical damage from time to time. For example, when he took out Brawl's missiles out of commission, or when he did some critical damage up to Megatron while he was about to die. Jazz can deal critical damage because his attacks are really precise, and he can dodge plenty of hits because of his amazing speed. So for that, I will say that Jazz falls into Scout class. But yeah guys, those are the classes that belong to the Transformers from the Autobot tier list. Next episode I'm gonna be covering the Decepticons, so stay tuned for that. If you guys disagree with any of my choices for the classes of any of these characters, feel free to tell me down below. And for the ones that I was unsure about, I want you guys to tell me if you guys agree with my final choice, or do you guys believe that the other choice was the right one. Like, let's just start a discussion down below, and let's go for 3 likes. If we get 3 likes, I will make a part 2.5 where I talk about the Decepticon classes. I know it's a huge like goal, but I'm sure we can do it. Anyways guys, that's it for this video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Stay fire, brothers. Hello guys, it's time for Patron shoutouts. Patron shoutouts goes to Libero Marufo aka L, Sachin Morag aka Mirage, and Trans Theories aka Knockout. Make sure to go check out Trans Theories' channel. He makes Transformers videos much like me. And I'm also gonna have to keep this segment short because I've been talking non-stop for half an hour. Yeah, the recording so far is a half an hour, so yeah, I want to end this right now because I'm really tired. If you guys wanna donate to my Patreon, links gonna be in the description down below and in the comments down below. $1 will get you a shout out in all of my videos, as well as a shout out to your YouTube channel if you have one, of course. And if you donate $3 or more than $3, you can request a video of your choosing. No weird kinky stuff though, like none of that please. Anyways, that's it for this video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Stay fire, brothers.